You're alone in your apartment. The door is locked, every window sealed. You're sitting on the couch, scrolling through your phone, when you hear your own voice calling your name from the bedroom. Not similar, not close, exact. Your voice, your inflection, your tone, speaking your name the way only you would say it. Your blood goes cold because you understand immediately what this means. You are here, and your voice is there, separately, existing without you, calling to you from an empty room. And the most terrifying part isn't that you're hearing it. It's that your voice knows you're listening. It knows you're afraid. And it keeps calling, over and over, getting closer. This is happening to people across America. Their own voices speaking to them from places they aren't. Sometimes warning, sometimes luring, always sounding exactly right. And the question that destroys sleep and sanity is simple. If your voice exists without you, what else can separate from your body and continue on its own? Anna Reeves was 28 years old when her own voice saved her life. October 12, 2024, Seattle, early morning. She was in the kitchen making coffee when she heard it. Her voice, coming from the bathroom down the hall, clear, distinct, urgent. "Anna, don't go today." She froze, coffee pot in hand. The apartment was empty. She lived alone. She walked slowly toward the bathroom, her heartbeat hammering in her ears. The voice came again, louder now, more insistent. "Anna, don't leave, don't take the trip, stay home." She pushed open the bathroom door. Empty, shower dry, lights off. But the voice had been so real, so present. She could still hear the echo of it in her mind, the exact timbre and cadence of her own speech, the slight rasp she had in the mornings, the way she shortened her name when stressed, Anne instead of Anna. Her voice knew her habits, her patterns, the way she spoke to herself when no one else was listening. Anna had planned to drive to Portland that day, a work trip, 3-hour drive down I-5, but the voice, her voice, had told her not to go, and the urgency in it, the fear, was so visceral that she felt it in her chest like a physical weight. She called her boss, made an excuse, canceled the trip, stayed home. At 11:47 a.m., her phone lit up with a news alert. Multi-car pileup on I-5 southbound near Olympia. 7 vehicles, 3 fatalities. The accident happened at exactly the time Anna would have been passing through that stretch of highway. She sat on her couch, staring at the news footage, hands shaking. Her voice had known. Somehow, from somewhere, a version of her had seen what was coming and called back across time or space or whatever impossible boundary separated them to warn her. But here's what kept Anna awake that night, staring at her dark bedroom ceiling. Where did that voice come from? Was it a future version of herself that had died in the crash and somehow reached back to prevent it? Was it a parallel Anna from a timeline where she didn't listen, where she drove anyway? Where she died on that highway and her last act was to scream a warning through the dimensional walls? Anna never heard the voice again. But sometimes, late at night, she wonders if somewhere else, in some other version of reality, there's an Anna who ignored the voice, and that Anna is dead. Michael Torres was 35, a graphic designer in Boston, and he was at work when his wife called him, hysterical, barely able to speak. "Michael, what's wrong? Why are you in the basement? Why are you screaming?" Michael went cold. "I'm not in the basement. I'm at my office. I'm at work." His wife's voice cracked. "Michael, I can hear you. You're calling for help. You're saying you fell. You need me to come down there." Michael stood up from his desk, phone pressed hard against his ear. "Rachel, I'm not home. Lock the bedroom door, right now. Don't go near the basement." But she was already moving. He could hear it in the background, her footsteps, the creak of the basement door opening. And then he heard it through the phone. His own voice, distant but clear, echoing up from the basement. "Rachel, down here. I'm hurt. Please help me." Michael's entire body went numb. That was his voice, his exact voice. The slight Boston accent he'd never fully lost. The way he said Rachel's name with the emphasis on the first syllable. It was him. But he was 10 miles away, standing in his office, staring out the window at the parking lot below. Rachel stood at the top of the basement stairs. Michael could hear her breathing through the phone. "Michael, why are you down there?" And the voice from the basement responded immediately. "I fell off the ladder. I think my leg is broken. I can't get up." Michael screamed into the phone. "Rachel, that's not me. Get out of the house." But she was already descending the stairs. Michael heard her footsteps echoing, heard the voice in the basement getting clearer, more insistent. "Hurry, Rachel. It hurts. I need you." And then Rachel stopped. Michael heard her gasp. "Michael, there's no one down here. The lights are off. The ladder isn't even." The basement door slammed shut above her. Michael heard it through the phone, heard Rachel scream. He was in his car 30 seconds later, breaking every traffic law, calling 911 while he drove. By the time he got home, Rachel had managed to force the door open from the inside. She was sitting on the front steps, shaking, refusing to go back in the house. They went to a hotel that night. The next morning, Michael went back alone, checked the basement. Nothing unusual, nothing out of place. But Rachel had recorded it. She'd been so confused, so frightened, that she'd started recording on her phone when she heard the voice. Michael listened to the audio file and his skin crawled. It was his voice, unmistakably, perfectly replicated, calling his wife into a dark basement where no one was waiting, or where something was waiting that sounded exactly like him. Emma Lou was 24, living in a Chicago apartment, and she heard her own voice every night at exactly 3:47 a.m. For 6 weeks straight, the same time, the same voice, the same message. "Emma, open the window. Let me in." The first time she thought she was dreaming. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, and heard it again. Her voice, coming from outside her third-floor window, soft, pleading, desperate. "Emma, please. It's cold out here. Let me in." Emma lived on the third floor. There was no balcony, no fire escape, nothing outside that window except a sheer drop to the alley below. But the voice persisted, night after night. "Emma, I'm you. I'm the version of you from the house across the street. Something's wrong with me. I need help. Please open the window." Emma never opened it, but she looked. One night, she pulled back the curtain and stared out into the darkness. The apartment building across the alley was abandoned. Had been for 2 years. Boarded windows. Condemned signs. No one lived there. No one could be calling to her from that building. But the voice insisted it was coming from there. From a version of Emma who lived in an empty, dead building and wanted to cross over. Emma started recording the voice. Proof. Evidence. Something to show she wasn't losing her mind. She played the recordings for friends, and they all agreed. It was her voice. Not similar. Not an approximation. Her exact voice, down to the slight lisp on the letter S, the way she overpronounced her T's. One friend asked the question Emma had been avoiding. "What if you let it in?" Emma didn't answer, because she already knew. If she opened that window, if she let the voice inside, something would change. Something would cross over. The Emma standing in the apartment would stop being the only Emma. And she had no way of knowing if that was a good thing. The voice hasn't stopped. It still calls every night at 3:47 a.m. Emma doesn't sleep well anymore. She never looks out the window. But sometimes in the silence between the voices' pleas, she hears something else. Scratching, like nails on glass, like something trying to claw its way through. 3 people. 3 voices. All identical to their own. Anna's voice warned her and vanished. Michael's voice lured his wife into danger. Emma's voice begs to be led in every single night. And none of them know where these voices originate. Are they echoes from parallel timelines where different choices were made? Are they quantum copies, consciousness that split off and exists in adjacent realities, desperately trying to communicate? Or is it something darker, something that learned how to mimic human voices perfectly and uses them to manipulate, to lure, to trap? The only certainty is this. Once you hear your own voice speaking to you from a place you're not, you can never trust sound again. Every noise in an empty house becomes suspect. Every echo becomes a question. And late at night, when you hear something that sounds like you calling your name from the next room, you have to decide. Do you investigate? Do you answer? Or do you stay silent, knowing that your voice is out there somewhere, existing without you, speaking your words, living your patterns, and trying desperately to make contact. The difference between hearing voices and hearing your own voice is credibility. When Michael's wife recorded his voice calling from the basement, when audio analysis confirmed it was his exact vocal signature, the phenomenon stopped being dismissible as hallucination and became something else entirely, something that shouldn't exist but does. Auditory hallucinations affect 5 to 15% of the population, usually vague sounds, whispers, indistinct words. But these aren't hallucinations. These are perfect replicas of specific voices saying specific things in specific patterns. Michael's recording was analyzed by audio forensics experts. Voice match, 98%. The voice in that basement wasn't similar to Michael. It was Michael. The same vocal cords, the same speech patterns, the same acoustic signature, except Michael was 10 miles away, which means his voice existed in 2 places simultaneously, and only one of those places had a body attached to it. There's a phenomenon in Norse folklore called Vardugr. It's a spirit double that arrives before you do. People hear your footsteps in the hallway before you get home. They hear your keys in the lock, your voice calling out, the sound of you removing your coat. They go to greet you, and no one's there. 10 minutes later, you actually arrive and repeat the exact sequence they already heard. It's been documented for centuries across Scandinavia. Not prediction, not premonition. Actual acoustic events that happen before the person arrives, like an echo running ahead of the source. The explanation given in folklore is that a part of you, your presence, your essence, your sound, can detach and arrive early, announcing you before your body catches up. Modern physics has a different term for it. Temporal acoustic displacement, sound that exists slightly out of sync with the timeline, bleeding through from moments that haven't happened yet or versions of reality running parallel. Anna's case fits the warning pattern. Her voice called from an empty bathroom to prevent her death. This suggests consciousness that exists beyond the moment, beyond the single timeline. Quantum mechanics proposes the many worlds interpretation. Every decision creates a branching universe where both outcomes occur. In one universe, Anna ignored the voice and died on I-5. In this universe, she listened and lived. But what if the dying Anna, in that final moment before the crash, had enough quantum awareness to send a message backward, a desperate warning that bled through to the timeline where she could still be saved? Sound is vibration. Vibration is energy. And energy, according to quantum field theory, doesn't neatly stay in one dimension. It bleeds. It leaks. It echoes across boundaries that shouldn't be permeable but are. Michael's case is different. His voice wasn't warning. It was luring. It called Rachel into the basement using pain and urgency as bait, then trapped her there when the door slammed shut. This suggests intelligence, intent, something that understood how to manipulate using Michael's voice, using his relationship with Rachel, using trust as a weapon. The question that haunts Michael is simple. If that wasn't him, what was it? Some researchers propose the doppelganger audio phenomenon, a parasitic entity that learns human speech patterns and replicates them to gain access, to manipulate, to feed on fear or confusion. Others suggest it's a version of Michael from a parallel timeline trying to cross over, trying to replace him by drawing his wife away, isolating her, making her vulnerable to an exchange. Michael doesn't know which explanation is worse. Emma's voice is the most persistent. 6 weeks. Every night. Same time. Same message. Let me in. This is the invitation pattern, the one that appears most frequently in reports. The voice doesn't threaten. It begs. It pleads. It frames itself as a victim needing rescue. Emma from the abandoned building across the street, cold and alone, desperate to come inside. But here's what Emma knows that the voice doesn't realize she knows. The building across the alley was condemned after a fire in 2022. 3 people died in that fire. One of them was a woman in her 20s. Emma never learned her name. But sometimes late at night she wonders if the voice calling to her isn't a parallel Emma at all. It's the woman who died in the fire who learned Emma's voice by listening through the walls when the building was still occupied, who now uses that stolen voice to lure someone, anyone, close enough to the window to pull them through. Emma will never open that window, but she also can't move, because she's terrified that if she leaves, the voice will follow. and it will start calling from somewhere closer. The pattern is clear across all cases. Voices that sound like you appear in empty spaces. They call your name. They know things only you would know. They speak with your exact cadence, your verbal tics, your emotional range. And they want something. Anna's voice wanted her to stay safe. Michael's voice wanted Rachel in the basement. Emma's voice wants to be let inside. The voices are either protective or predatory, warning or luring, saving or trapping, and you can't tell the difference until it's too late. The warning signs are subtle. Voices in empty rooms, calls from places no one should be, audio that sounds too perfect, too exactly like you. The instinct to respond is overwhelming because it's your voice, but responding is the risk. What if the voice is a trap? What if opening the door, approaching the window, going to the basement, answering the call, what if that's the moment when something crosses over? When the boundary thins enough for an exchange? Anna never heard her voice again, but she's alive because she listened. Michael's wife barely escaped, but they can't live in that house anymore. Emma still hears her voice every night, and she's learning to sleep through it, to ignore the pleading, to keep the window locked, no matter how desperate the voice sounds. They've all joined online communities. Acoustic doubles, voice mirrors, forums for people who've heard themselves from places they weren't. The common advice is simple. Never respond, never investigate, never open the door or window or approach the source. Because the voice might be you. But it might also be something else wearing your voice like a mask, learning your patterns, waiting for the moment you trusted enough to let it in. The question no one wants to ask is the one that breaks your sense of self. If your voice can exist separately from you, what else can? Your thoughts, your memories, your consciousness? What if every time you speak, a copy of your voice peels off and continues somewhere else, in some parallel space, living an acoustic existence independent of your body? What if right now, your voice is calling to someone from an empty room, and you don't even know it's happening? What if you're not the original? What if you're the echo, the copy, the version that split off, and the real you is somewhere else, calling and calling, trying to get back? Check the empty rooms in your house. Listen carefully at night when the world goes quiet. Because if you hear your own voice calling your name from a place you're not, you have seconds to decide. Is it a warning from a version of you that died trying to save you? Or is it something that learned your voice and wants you close enough to replace you? Anna chose to trust. Michael chose to run. Emma chooses to ignore. But none of them can unhear what they've heard, and neither can you. Once you know your voice exists without you, every sound becomes suspect. Every call becomes a question. And late at night, when you hear yourself speaking from the darkness, you'll have to choose. Do you answer? Or do you stay silent, knowing that somewhere out there, your voice is calling, and it might be you, and it might not be, and you'll never know for sure which one is real?